Welcome to the latest edition of the Ipsos Almanac, where we review the year just gone, 2023, and look ahead to what those events mean for 2024, drawing on our work from 90 countries around the world. A year ago, we were worrying about the rise of inflation and a global cost of living crisis, and we were wondering whether concern about inflation had peaked. It hadn't. A year later, it's still there as the number one anxiety in the world when we ask people the problems facing their country, and that is for the 20th consecutive month. It stayed up at levels far higher than central bankers were originally predicting in 2021. So the Mona Lisa economy is still with us. Depending on which way you look at that painting, you see something different. Uncertainty is the new normal, and the polycrisis, that mixture of different economic, climate, political, geopolitical conflict all together in one, feeding on each other, continues. We have 112 armed conflicts being monitored by the Geneva Academy across the world. Gaza, Ukraine are only two of those. Now, in terms of what the public were predicting for 2023, 6 out of 10 of them said it was going to be the hottest year on record. The public aren't always right, but they were this time. Rainstorms in Hong Kong, forest fires in Canada producing so much smoke, Manhattan was obscured, drought in Europe, flooding in Pakistan and Libya. I could go on and on and on. Most people around the world say they're now seeing really severe effects of climate change right where they live. And yet urgency to take action is falling. And we can also see that governments are noticing that public opinion is now starting to focus on the here and now and economic issues rather than the longer term crisis in climate. When we're talking about governments, you won't be surprised to hear that politicians themselves remain the least trusted people in the world in our global trustworthy index, with journalists and advertising executives not far behind them. And of course, when we look at politics, at times like this in the polycrisis, populism thrives. We started the year, actually, with the number of populist leaders at a 20-year low. But as the election of Javier Milei in Argentina and Geert Wilders in the Netherlands show, populism is far from dead, and the conditions that support it are right there. People feel that the future they were promised has not been delivered. Another casualty of these economically difficult times could be big brands themselves. 6 out of 10 of us say that we buy brands that reflect our personal values, but that number, interestingly, has fallen for the first time in a decade, and value brands, non-brands in a sense, are now on the rise. With all of that change going on, we should be grateful for scientists. They remain at the top of our global trustworthiness league. But science itself is now facing headwinds, and optimism about scientific progress is on the decline. And this is even before we talk about artificial intelligence. We saw this year, of course, ChatGPT storming in with 100 million users in just a few weeks. Hallucinate is now the Cambridge Dictionary's word of the year, that old word with a new meaning, talking about computers rather than people. Most of us all over the world say AI is exciting in terms of its potential, but 1 in 3 of us are worried that it will take our jobs. I can tell you that if it does, we'll have other things to worry about than public opinion, and it's actually very unlikely. But that concern shows just how anxious people are about technology generally. And what our Global Trends Survey shows this year is that the proportion of people who say that technology is at risk of destroying our lives has risen to an all-time high. We've also seen, linked to that, rising concern about mental health, and it overtook cancer for the first time as the number one global concern all over the world. So as we go into 2024, some real challenges, but at the same time, we should remind ourselves that there are things that unite us. Interestingly, despite reshoring, friendshoring, and geopolitical conflict, most of us still say that globalization is good for our country. On average, 6 out of 10 people. 3 in 4 people globally say they're happy with our lives, and our research continuously shows that it's our relationships with our family, our friends, and our loved ones that matter above all. So sit back and see what we make of the last year that's gone and look forward to what happens next. All we know is that the only certainty is uncertainty, but we have a huge number of signs of the way the world is going. Thank you.